Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar will be about painting colorful environments in Clips to Paint and it will be presented by Yi Chen Hock.
Hello.
Before we begin the webinar, there are some housekeeping items that we'd like to go through. The webinar will be approximately 1 hour long. All attendees will be muted. There will be a Q&A session during the last 15 minutes of the webinar. Attendees can ask questions in the GoToWebinar question box right away. Due to time constraints, not all the questions will be answered. This webinar is being recorded and recording will be shared on social media, also uploaded to our YouTube channel, Graphicsly, and also will be sent via email to all the registrants and attendees. The panelists for this webinar are Maria Quiñones, myself, and Yi Chen Hock. For those of you who connect with us for the very first time or have never heard about Clip Studio Paint, Clip Studio Paint is your all-in-one solution for stunning, ready-to-publish illustrations, comics, manga, and animations. Learn more at clipstudio.net/and graphicsly.com. Also, we encourage you to share Instagram stories promoting the webinar, and we'll be sharing the stories if you tag us with the hashtag webinar at Chen_DLL, at Graphicsly, at Wacom, at Clip Studio Official. Yi Chen Hock is an artist who is known for her colorful and vibrant illustrations. She's currently a technical artist at Meta, and in her spare time she also likes game development, crocheting, and making fun videos. So with that, I will leave you with Yi Chen and her presentation, Painting Colorful Environments in Clip Studio Paint. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Yi Chen Hock. I'm going to be presenting today. Could you change the screen? Okay. So today I am going to be showing you some of my process of drawing environments, which is something that I've been really enjoying doing for the past couple of years. So a little bit of an introduction. I am currently a technical artist at Meta. I've been working on the avatars in the metaverse, which you might have seen before. They're kind of everywhere. On Instagram, they have them as like the stickers. I am Singaporean. I'm currently joining this webinar at 3 a.m. from Singapore, but normally I live in New York and work there. I grew up in the UK and I studied engineering at university. So I didn't actually go to art school, but I did most of my practice just learning from YouTube videos and also from observation, talking to other artists, but around like, and here's like some of the art that I like to do, but around like a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago now, I did like an art mentorship with Slawic, which I feel like has a lot of similar traits to my art style that I really like. So shout out to my art mentor. A little bit more about my art style. I really like kind of very vibrant neon colors and bold shapes in my paintings. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about like uh, this sort of art style that I've been doing with these environments, explaining a little bit about like um, how I go about doing them. And then I will work on a live demo drawing. And I want to spend a little bit more time on the drawing part so I can show you more as I go along, like my thought process when I'm drawing, and perhaps hopefully you guys can also draw along. You can either draw the same thing or something else. So the first thing I want to talk about that is like super crucial, fundamental to my drawing that I think about a lot is value. And most of you probably have heard about this before, but when people look at a drawing, the first thing that they read to kind of try and understand what the drawing looks like, or read it, basically, is the value or the dark and lightness of a color. So if we go back to like these like drawings, and I like zoom out, you can see that because the values are very clear, so it's like very clear what parts are like bright and what parts are dark, and they form like distinct, easy to read shapes, then it's like kind of nice for the person looking at it to be able to make sense of what's going on. And often if you have like messy values in terms of like having a lot of colors which have values that are like in between the dark and light colors, then it can make your drawings a little bit less readable and muddy. So so that is the first concept I want to talk about, is value grouping. So if you look at the reference drawing which I use, and this is actually like a picture that I took from my office window, and it's actually where I used to live, like last year, I think, in New York. And I kind of like the reference because I feel like there's a lot of interesting details and in the shapes. But I kind of saw this. Let's add a. Oh, wait, my pen stopped working. 1 second. Okay, perfect. Okay, so if we look at the reference image, I kind of saw that there's like these shapes here, and so I sort of did a value grouping. And also I guess like I thought it would be interesting to include this as it's like a separate value, but I split that the image into two main values, and then I tried to keep like the colors within like this area kind of similar within value. So you can see like all these like colors. There's a lot of like fuchsias in the area. I'm mainly using like a green and red color palette here, but they kind of stay within like a similar range. And then like similar with like the darker area. And you can do this with a lot of different references. So like here's another example where it's a little bit more complicated looking in terms of like where should I be grouping things. But you can have a look at like if I add select this bottom image, I like to use this as a way to check for value. So I'll like fill this in with black and set this layer to color, give you this image kind of sort of for the value inside the color. And typically this kind of dark blue here, when it's in color, it can like technically be like really, really dark, but when you like set it to a black and white like this, but when it's in color, it's not gonna be like super, super dark, so it feels like it's extremely different from the rest. So you can mainly see that there is still a sort of shape in the composition, like leading to the focal point being over here, where I'm sort of having the lighter colors like here. in this area and also in this area. And then the darker area being like in this area here. And I feel like in the past I've been asked like, but am I supposed to be utilizing the entire color range? Like, is my dark values like the dark enough, or I'm not using the brightest color? Is that like bad? And I think like at least for this sort of style, like I like to draw in, it's kind of useful to kind of think about this in this way. Like it's sufficient as long as there's enough contrast between like the dark and the light area. If you group it distinctly enough, it will read quite clearly. And then you can check it by like zooming kind of far away and having a look at, oh, overall, does my image still make sense? And I think it will work out, especially if you kind of think about overall overarching simpler shapes. So you can like see that overall this right here, sort of this kind of like lighter area is a pretty simple shape that's easy to like understand even if you're looking at it from further away, but you can still like add in variations in or make it feel complex by adding like these, I mean, there's a lot of details here, but there's also a lot of like hue shifts within like this area where that can paint the detail onto the bigger shape. So in the next slide, let's talk a bit about color. So it can feel like I use a lot of color, but often I like to like limit my color choices. It's not like a hard and fast rule. If you're going for something like super prismatic, I can also tell you like ways in which I approach it to make it work in your drawing. So the first thing being like in my artwork, at least in a lot of these like illustrations, there typically is kind of a limited amount of color choice, and there like each piece, for this one I would say there's like three colors. So you have like this like blue, and I guess like it's like a darker version of this blue, but it's kind of the same shade. Then you have like this yellowish color, and then you have like this kind of pink accent color. So that's like the three main colors here. And then this one you have like this kind of greenish that like goes into this like lighter color, that's painted over like a yellow background, but it also has like these shades of muted red. And then for this one, you have like this blue, this yellow, a little bit of this like kind of very gray red color, and then like this green color. And then for this one, also like primarily just, well, I would say it would be this kind of like light greenish color, this red color, and then shade like this hint of, it kind of looks yellow, but it is like green, which is technically still like a shade of this. So you could almost call like maybe this fourth color palette like monochromatic, but it works because when you well, this kind of palette is almost like a complementary color palette, and it works because when you well, I mean, often when you like paint between something that is like one color, but you want to use the complementary color or any other color on the color palette, I imagine like the color traveling to that color through the gray colors. So you have this like red color, and to kind of get to the green, you want to kind of travel through to the gray colors first, and then head over to this like more greenish color from the gray area. And that's kind of why you're seeing this you're kind of seeing this kind of grayish color, but when in practice it kind of feels or translates to more of like a yellow color, because it's also the yellow or desaturated yellow also acts like a transition color there. So yeah, overall, like my pieces don't use like that many key colors, but then within like kind of the colors, there's sort of subtle hue shifts that work because they stay within the same sort of value rate. I touched on a little bit about those color palettes. They're there. They're still also not a hard and fast rule, but I would think about color palettes as like, oh, if I'm not sure, let me have a think about like these sort of established things that work, and pick colors that sort of work with that, because it will often just look good together. But I would think of use color scheme usage as more of a I'm using it to help potentially invoke a certain mood in your drawing. For example, like try like kind of these sort of square color palettes are often used more in like, you'll see it a lot in like Nintendo, Mario, where it feels very happy. And then like monochromatic, or like things that mainly predominantly use like a certain color like blue might be used to invoke sad moods, or something like that. So I guess like to explain a little bit more about like how something can have that value grouping, which I talked about. So even with this, like let's put a color layer over it and see this image in black and white. You can see that I'm also doing like kind of thinking or compressing the image that I'm drawing into kind of these two separate values. So zooming out a little bit, you can see the shapes are still clear because I like make sure to think about this like value separation. And then you have like this area here where it's like brighter, and then like the darker area here. And so like one thing I was like confused about when I was trying to figure out how to paint in this way is like, oh, how do I make it more interesting? How to make it more colorful? And also, secondly, I kind of want this like rock here to be like mostly in the shadow, but how can I do that if I'm only really using one value? Like you imagine, oh, the rock should have a lot of planes, so I should be like adding a lot of I should be adding a lot of like darker shadows, but that doesn't work because I want it to be similar in value. So how can I do that? So now you can see this in color, and you can see that I've been able to depict like the plane of the rock underneath here, like this shape, using a different hue but not a different value. And this color also works because like the clouds and I guess the sandy rocks and stuff are like a more yellow, so it also feels like the color is being reflected from the ground up to the rock, whereas the rock is reflecting a lot of the sky. And when I'm kind of painting from references, I also like to push that like color range, or like the colors that I see in real life, and like push it even further, make it like even more vibrant. And that would be like kind of nice to and make nice way to make it more interesting. So let's talk a little bit more also about what I mean by color vibration. It's an easy way for you to be able to paint within like a certain value group, and also add in visual interest by like hue shifting. But like you kind of just, I guess, pick any random color, because um, if you do that, you could mess with the kind of values that you're trying to keep correct. So remember, you're trying to keep at least within the same value group, like the colors within the same range. So how do you pick those colors? So I think about it this way. So if I like take a screenshot of, I'm going to take a screenshot of the color wheel, and I'm going to paste this here. I'm going to make this bigger. And then I am also going to take a screenshot of the color wheel when it's in yellow and compare. So reason why I want to look at these two colors is because the yellow and the blue at their greatest saturation, which is like over here at the top corner of the color wheel, the blue is actually like a lot darker than its yellow counterpart, and you can kind of like see that here. So if I turn this to black and white again, you can see that this is a lot darker, and so this varies for like colors around the color wheel, as you can see from like this sort of color wheel being the colors. This ring here being the colors at their highest saturations, but then it kind of varies in like light color to the darkest color being over here. And so in order to kind of pick colors that are similar in value, you can notice that like if you look at this, if you were to draw like a line, I would call it like the line of equal value. You can see that the line of equal value kind of does this, or like, let me make this even smaller, kind of does this, whereas this one is a lot steeper. And as long as you pick like colors along that curve, you will be picking colors that have the same value. So then when you do that, let's kind of do like an example here. Like say this gray here, and then you kind of pick this color. You can do that, and you can do that within the same sort of range. Similar with like this, like pick this gray over here, and then we'll pick this like yellow right here. They will be similar in value, and then you can kind of do that. So when I'm like looking at this rock over here, I'm like, oh, I want to add in like so if you think about it, this is kind of sort of the same as this gray, and this gray is sort of the same as this yellow. So if we look at this one's sort of the same as this gray. And then let's look at the yellow counterpart. It kind of goes up a little bit higher here. So I can kind of start, oh, I think you can paint it in. I think it should be a little darker than this. And then you can see that you can like add in a different color. I think a more warmer color here to match like underneath. So you can see that the values kind of start to match, and I can like add in a different color to the drawing that still works because there are kind of very similar value. So yeah, and I would call like the process of trying to like find what those colors are like color vibration. And another thing I would keep in mind is that when you have like a very desaturated color, so example like right here, right? And you can kind of do this the same with like any color. So let's kind of pick this gray, and then find like a similar value color next to it. I would feel like when you put a more saturated color next to a more desaturated color, it will kind of like pop. And this sort of effect is very nice and useful for like kind of glowy effects. That's why I feel like it's happening right here, with this like pink with this like slightly more desaturated blue. And like people like to use this effect a lot to do stuff like subsurface scattering if they're trying to paint something a little bit more translucent. Okay, so let's put things into practice. I think we have 20 minutes, so I am going to do some example drawing on this image. This is a picture I took in Taiwan. I recommend taking your own photos. It's very liberating to draw from your own things. Like a lot of the paintings I've done, they're all photos that I personally took. Like, yeah, just go outside, touch grass, take a lot of photos. And when you take photos, I think finding like a good reference or photo also comes from like thinking about how you frame your image from the beginning, and like composition and stuff. So yeah, really recommend. So I'm going to kind of paint this in. I've already done like an example paint over for this, but I will show you like the steps and paint from scratch. So this is like I would start with blocking it in, and then like I would refine the colors a little bit, and add in like the details. So here I kind of been pushing those colors that I'm seeing. So thinking about like the two value stuff, thinking about like kind of trying to group the shadows together, and yeah, and adding more detail. Okay, so let's put this into practice. I am going to sort of add, I kind of like to pick like, if I see like a color for the sky, something a little bit more saturated, and like in this case like brighter, and then I would like zoom out so that I can paint while kind of seeing the entire picture. And also I'm kind of just like, the brush I'm using is literally a square. I've been like enjoying just very, very basic setup. I feel like square is cool because it has like very sharp shape or edges that it's like harder to paint in a hard edge than it is to make like it in retrospect, than to kind of start um, with like softer things and trying to add in hard edges. So basically, it's like harder to make all your edges like harder if you started out with like a softer rounded brush than the other way around. So I would start by like blocking in the shape of what I'm seeing. I'm kind of like a paint in one layer person. I think for these sketches, I think it's okay because you're kind of practicing, I guess, thumbnailing and seeing the overall picture. So block in your initial shapes. And then for the other color, I think I'm going to use like a darker thing. So you can see I'm sort of already thinking about, oh, I have like a slightly lighter area, a slightly darker area. And typically also when you want to draw like these two value groups, you want to be thinking about the overall shape that is making. And it's like more aesthetic if you have like a slightly, you know, not like a 50-50 split, but like, oh, you can see like the dark area kind of like fills up a little bit more space than the lighter area. I'm kind of a fan of green, so I like to add like this kind of darkish green in my shadows, green or yellow ochre. but that's just like a personal preference. So I guess color palette wise, I'm kind of like thinking green, blue, orange. And I like kind of basically just layer this on, color pick what's being layered on, and use that to render. Also, the road isn't quite so blue. So, but since I painted blue, I can kind of glaze over it with like a more desaturated color, and it'll still keep a bit of that kind of blue color. And then even with like kind of the two value thing, you can add like harder, darker shadows, so it doesn't feel like you're painting with just like a Instagram filter or something. So and within the darker, I would call them like contact shadows. You can add like slightly darker colors to make your drawing pop. So here, yeah, and also feel free to follow along and like try paint the same reference. I can wait. Let me kind of zoom in right here for a few seconds, and you can take a screenshot for your own reference if it's like kind of small on the screen. Okay, I'm starting to kind of add in like the lighter area or lighter color. I I'm kind of pushing the yellow color that I'm seeing, but I don't want it to be like too. Um, I mean, it's gonna be like brighter, but I'm sort of building this up by adding the color, but letting the color beneath like shine through a little. Um, I think I can make this a little bit more like darker blue to kind of match what I'm seeing in the sky a little bit more. So here, but you can see like the sky sort of has a little bit of a gradient, so it's like brighter here. And then it's like, so yeah, think of this, especially like starting it, you can build up like the painting pretty fast by just focusing on the bigger shapes. So that was like too orange that I picked, so I kind of put it down, color picked it a little, and then now it like matches the color a little bit better. And then so I use that color. I think after like finding your initial colors, you want it's kind of a matter of like just color picking from your drawing. And then here, I want this building to look a little different. So I'm going to use a slightly more yellow color and glaze over here. And continuing to add in details here. For this kind of drawing, I think it's like I picked this reference because I feel like, oh, it's kind of pretty sunny. It's not super overcast. And because when things are overcast, it's a little harder to paint, but it's not like impossible. But it's because like the shadows aren't as clear. But when you're like practicing, you can start off like finding these sort of images that have these clear shapes. And then like later on, I think after practicing a bit more on like how to find aesthetic shapes, you can, start to like be able to find them easier, even if like it's not super clear in your original reference. So I'm seeing like some reds here, they're very dark, but I want to kind of emphasize them a little bit more. So I like to pick this like more saturated red. It kind of works because I think it's kind of like similar in value to the colors in the building. So let's have a look at how. So I'm painting this like painting again. You see my color choice is a little bit different. I think in this version I'm using a little bit more pink. But yeah, be interesting. I think we have 8 minutes left, so I'm going to kind of just refine this a little bit more and talk a little bit more like about how I would kind of start building this up a little bit more. So because buildings are facing the sky, I'll probably glaze over this a little bit with like a blue color and have it fit a little bit more with the environment. So that's how I would like build up the image initially when I'm starting it, and we can like kind of keep going with this, like trying to refine these shapes by drawing it and then using neighboring colors to refine. And let's skip forward a little bit. So kind of pre-prepared, when I kind of drew this before, I'm like not pushing the colors here, not using a super dark color here, kind of using a different hue. Remember I talked about different hue to represent like a change in plane, because it's kind of more lighter in value. I didn't want it to be too dark. And then adding in like the details and the little like windows, and then kind of you can use those like perspective grids to help. For something like this, I think it's like relatively straightforward in the sense that you can kind of eyeball it by looking at how the lines just sort of converge in this kind of way. But yeah, you can use perspective grid to check. But as I am doing it, I zoom in a little bit more. I guess the more you work on it, the more you refine it, the more you will zoom in and then like clean up all the details. So you can see I'm adding in a little bit more. I'm pushing the yellow, and I'm doing it by it works because they're kind of similar in value. Because this is like part of the light area and this is like part of dark area. That's why I'm kind of choosing those like dark yellow in the shadow and light yellow here, but it still kind of reads as one line. And then you can start to add, like you see this building here is like more blue, barring that light from the sky and glazing over the darker greens here. And then like I'm using like more dark color here to kind of make those like darkest parts pop. So it feels a little bit more dimensional. And like finally adding slightly more detail, and then the rest would be like, you know, zooming in to render it more. So so we have 4 minutes left. So in order, when I kind of do that kind of thing, I like to zoom in a lot more to the picture, maybe like take a a partial screenshot, and then put that reference like closer to the image right here. And then like once you figured out like the colors from like far away, and let's also like just look at this in black and white, you can see that, oh, it's like fairly like readable. It's actually like also kind of similar in terms of like where the values are here. And you can always use this like black color layer to double check the values in your artwork and the shapes. As long as they're readable and understandable, I think your colors will have worked. So then when you're kind of trying to refine this, like looking at this like more close up, I would just like, see this part is a little bit darker, so I would start adding in a little bit of those, like deepen the shadows a little bit, so it doesn't feel as flat. And then since I've kind of used these colors in other parts of the piece, I would kind of color pick and reuse those colors. And see, there's like a little ledge here, so I would add that like little detail. And then like right here, adding in a tiny bit of detail where there's like a line between the roof and here, and making that slightly less harsh by painting over it with this, darkening a little bit the shadow, but not making it too dark. So kind of painting over it, color picking that, and then using that color to paint underneath. And then like actually drawing in the windows. So, using this little bit of color and then drawing in the details for the windows. Maybe zoom in a little bit more. And then color pick and refine, basically. Yeah, that's, I guess, the rendering process after you have laid down the colors here. And then I guess when you're thinking about like drawing in these kind of shapes, like this sign here, I am including this a strip of light on the side to kind of show the dimension of the sign and help people understand, oh, this is like a cube, but it's facing slightly to the right, and then maybe adding in a little bit of I would do this, so light yellow, but I want it to be a little bit bluer, so it works with reflecting the sky a little bit more. So I'll pick like a similar value color that's blue and kind of like paint over it slightly like this. And yeah, so that is overall how I would approach painting something like this. And like to kind of keep in mind or just quickly reiterate like the concepts that I've been talking about. One being like understanding value of the color, so how dark and light the color is, and then value grouping. So thinking about like, okay, in my drawing, where the dark areas are, where the light areas are, how can I kind of think about them as like two sort of different shapes? How do I kind of compositionally separate them? And then how can I push the colors in my piece while sort of thinking about what my main colors are, and kind of trying to limit yourself to some key colors and then allowing yourself to deviate from that using the color vibration technique that I showed you with hue shifts and stuff to make your painting more interesting and also be able to depict changes in plane or add detail. So then like for this piece, for example, it would I use like this kind of blue color that has like this like lighter blue variation. I use green color. I use this kind of yellow slash like a slightly darker yellow version of that yellow, and then like red. So those were sort of in the back of my mind when I was painting this piece. And yeah, I hope that sort of made sense. Hopefully, it wasn't like too overwhelmingly a lot of information. And I am ready for questions if there are any questions. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Yi Chen. There's a lot of questions. Thank all of you who are joining us live and who are watching the recording. At the beginning, we asked from which part of the world were you watching us, what time it was. I saw a lot of people from England, the US, Mexico, let me check, Madrid, that's Spain, Hungary. I saw some people from Japan, Africa, Libya, where else? Canada, Holly, Nancy from London, Paris. So thank all of you. And time flies, so let's start with the questions. And the first one is from Gina. Gail, it's a fun question, but how do you deal with zooming in too much and too often? How are your eyes
Oh,
with with your working process?
oh wait, how do I deal with what?
With zooming in, zooming out, is this something
Oh,
that
zooming
you
in and zooming
do?
out. Oh, do I do that a lot? I feel like I probably do that a lot when I'm drawing. I kind of just do it pretty instinctively because I like to check. Um, or maybe it's like more disorientating as a viewer, but I do that a lot because I like to look at the bigger picture, the overall picture. So and then sometimes I kind of just do it like instead of drawing because it's just a like a no brain thing or like a habit thing. But yeah, definitely like I don't know, like dealing with it, I guess I do it, but the reason why I do it is because I like to check the big picture and make sure everything's like, readable and it makes sense to me.
Totally, totally. And this one is from Nancy Wang. And this was so interesting. Oh my God, thank you so much for the session. Helped me to think about what colors to choose. But I don't know. I want to know what runs through your head when you choose colors. Do you just mainly pick the colors you like and then discern the values from there, or do you first think or complementary colors? Thank you.
um, so let's have a look at like I guess some of my paintings that I had over here. And I guess they come like hand in hand in the sense of like so when I'm thinking about colors, I think there's a lot of like, depending on the period of time in my life, because I feel like when I look through my art over the years, there are some specific colors that I gravitate towards more in general. So I think it used to be more orange, and then now and then for a moment it was like pink, and then yellow ochre is a like a starting color, and now it's more like greens or yellow ochres and greens. Um, and so those are just colors I gravitate towards. And even if like I'm not using green specifically in the piece, some things might feel a little bit more green because I'm putting like shades or hue shifts that feel more green. But I think that's just like a personal preference thing. And then as for like the actual colors I'm picking, Sometimes I go with a few different, like I experiment with a few different color palettes. Um, but like generally I'm like, okay, I'll put down two colors and then I like if I pick purple, then I often like to pick yellow because it's like, oh, it works together. They're kind of complementary. Um, and like I guess like since after drawing like a lot of these different environments, you kind of discover through experimentation, which I did for a lot of it, like colors that you like and that work for you that are like um, color palettes that are tried and true. And then your next drawing is like kind of picking from your own visual library of colors in your head that you know already work. That is also part of my process when I think about color. And then also kind of just throwing in a different color and saying, oh, kind of does it work? And then some things potentially for like more story-based things, you might want to think about uh, like colors in the context of whatever you're doing. So I think if it goes beyond you're just doing one illustrative piece, but you're kind of doing an overall drawing, then I think that will matter. Like how one color flows towards the next. Does one of your illustrations, does it kind of sort of gradient or eventually shift color towards another, or is there like a sudden shift in your next illustration? That's something you want to be thinking about, if especially if there's a story related to your artwork. Yeah, next question, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Well, makes total sense. Thank you. This one is from Sabina. Sabiha, sorry, Sabiha S. How do you know when to stop rendering? Do you usually aim to get to a level of detail?
Um, I would say kind of depends on your goals. So I have recently, I guess in the past few years, been gravitating towards having more ideas and concepts that are less rendered than like a rendered piece. It's like, do I want to have 10 sketches or do I want to have one illustrative drawing that I spend like 30 hours on? I think it also like depends on your use case. But if you're doing it to practice, then unless you're practicing like rendering technique, I think there's definitely value in practicing that rendering. Aside from the skill itself, it's a practice to kind of start something, go through the process of making it, like having the stamina to finish the drawing and seeing it all the way through. But then the other being, I personally get a lot of satisfaction out of having more ideas. And I'd rather have like 10, like, or 50, like very quick thumbnails, turning 10 of them into like ideas that didn't take me too long to finish, and finishing off a couple of them to a level that I kind of like. And rather than like having one concept that I just work on for a really long time. But if I'm having to kind of do it for a poster or something like that, then it would be different. Yeah, again, on the context of your drawing. I would say a lot of my drawings recently, I wouldn't say I've spent like a very huge amount of time there, but as for me, it's about like if I'm happy with the concept of what I've kind of like tried to convey and it looks presentable, and at a glance like people can like understand it, then it's good enough for me, you know. Yeah.
Thank you. And this question is from Inkira Studio. What's your favorite tool with Clip Studio Paint?
I would say my most often used tool I like to use, so I guess I didn't show this a lot because it's something I used to do more often when I was much more unsure about my colors. But I often like to, let's pick this, and I would press W for wand select, and then I would uncheck apply to connected pixels only, maybe increase the tolerance a little, and then click on I would click on like a color in the piece. Um, and then maybe like click on a couple more neighboring colors like this. Press, make sure that this only selects this image here. And then I will press Control U for hue, saturation, luminosity. And then I would literally just change the hue. And then just kind of like see and so basically what this does is replace an entire all instances of a specific color in your drawing with another color. And I do this extremely often, especially when I'm trying to figure out what I like a few different color palettes, because it's a really easy way to be able to kind of cycle through color palettes by switching out a instance of the color completely. So I wouldn't say this is like Clip Studio Paint specific, but like I like Clip Studio Paint for doing this versus something like Procreate, specifically because when you do a wand select, you can uncheck apply to connected pixels only, or in in Photoshop, I think it calls it like contiguous, because it allows me to select all instances of a specific color. And I find that extremely useful, especially in the slightly early beginning stage of a drawing, or even just like, I think I showed slightly later on with this drawing, how I kind of did all of these. I would kind of use that in combination, in conjunction with just like hue shifting the entire thing, then painting over it as a base to achieve different like color variations of the same painting. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. This one is from Katia Souza. Do you always use the same brush or do you create your own brushes?
I have created my own brushes. I have, but I made them for, I guess you might be able to use them on Clipstudio Paint for it too, but I made them for Procreate. They're like similar. I think you can find a link in my bio on my Instagram, but it emulates the Instagram story brushes, because for a while, I really enjoyed painting on the Instagram story directly. So literally on Instagram, I did a lot of reels doing that. So I kind of made brushes that basically mimic what the same brushes that you have on Instagram. But in general, like I guess for the past like few years or so, I've just really enjoyed painting with um, this like square brush. And I got this square brush. You can just download it. If you literally type square brush on Google, someone has made it for Clip Studio Paint, and it's literally just a square. And that doesn't even, well, it has a little bit of like pen pressure, but not significantly. So I kind of use it as a marker and I layer on each other, similar to the Instagram story brush. I don't know, I just kind of like the simplicity. And then sometimes I'll use a bit of like others for like texture. And yeah, but a lot of my recent brushes have kind of just revolved paintings for environment specifically have revolved around this square brush for this style. But yeah, you're also welcome to kind of um, experiment with different brushes, but for me, I think less and more simple reduces my personal barrier to just doing the thing. um, the simpler it is, like the less brain power it is to use, I guess. Then I can focus on drawing the thing.
Well, thank you so much, Yichen. We have a few seconds before we go. This session is 60 minutes long, and again, thank you so much. People is loving it. They send a lot of love through the chat. So thank you so much, Yichen.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And This webinar is being recorded. Remember to follow us on YouTube and in our socials, and follow Yi Chen on her socials, especially the Beacons AI Chen underscore DLL. Um,
Yes.
so I think the timing is off, but we can say a few seconds. Thank you so much, Ishan. Thank all of you who joined us live. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be shared in socials and via email to all registrants. If you attended live, you will receive an email with the recording, but also you can actually generate your e-certificate on the bottom of the email. And so this is our second time having Yishen. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I know you did because all of the support and love through the chat. So thank you so much, Yishen.
Thank you so much. It was really cool to have this opportunity. Thank you everyone for attending.
Yes, and we hope to see you on our next webinars and promotions. So please stay tuned to Graphicsly and Clip Studio official on Instagram, Clip Studio Paint on other socials. So stay tuned, and we'll see you probably in the next weeks. We'll have more webinars, and this is our first of 2026. So please stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye. Thank you so much, Ishan.
Bye bye. Thank you everyone.